Hey guys, this is Thomas Brown, and welcome to the Thomas Vision Podcast. I'm a filmmaker currently based in Atlanta, and this podcast consists of conversations with the professionals I meet along the way. Hey, what's going on, guys? Thomas Brown here. We are here on the Thomas Vision Podcast. Today, I'm really excited because this is the first episode where I have another wedding videographer here. His name is Rich of Rich Lee Productions, and Rich and I met. Has it been a year, Rich?
No, it'll be a year in February.
In February. Yes. So we met almost a year ago. And I was filming the behind the scenes for Swati Studios. It was for a not like social networking event. And Rich came up to me and said, "Hey, are you Thomas Brown?" And I was like, "Yeah." And we had already followed each other on social media. And Rich has like one of the best personalities that you guys will see. He's just always happy. He's always positive, and I just love gravitating to people who are like that. So, Rich, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
So Rich, you had heard about me, and how did that come about?
All right, so I was shooting at Chalet, and I kept shooting weddings there. So I looked at their other videographers, and I saw your wedding at Chalet. Then I went on your website. Then I went on your social media, followed you. Then from there, told everybody else to follow you that I knew.
And I think you sent me a message too, and I replied back, and I started following. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I just your work is just phenomenal. And I was just
let me tell you, I appreciate that, but I'm always trying to get better. And Rich's work is really good, guys. You gotta check it out. We'll give some links and stuff at the end of the show. But I really appreciate that, man. But we want to talk about you. And what I really wanted to bring you on is because I really want to know what it's like. In the late, or what are we? I guess it was not really mid 2000s, right? But the 2019, 2018, 2017, growing a videography business, and how you're doing it, what you love about it, what are some of the challenges, and what are some of the things that you're really excited about. So let's start with how you got started. How did that go?
All right. So my first wedding that I ever did was in 2013. I did a friend's wedding from college. From there, pretty much just got paid in liquor and alcohol from the open bar. So that was that. 2014 was my first paid gig from a friend in college. And from there, I was actually in the same field that you used to be in. I was a recruiter.
Okay, yeah.
So I was a recruiter for years, and I hated recruiting with a passion.
I think we all did. But let me ask you, did you get anything from recruiting that has helped you in your videography career?
Yes.
What was that?
Sourcing, sales, talking to people, just starting up general conversations, because I know that you were an IT recruiter. I was recruiting for jobs at Target that were $8 an hour for 14 hours a week. So
I started kind of doing that recruiting too with nursing. Well, not the same thing, but nursing recruiting, which is really hard, as well. But I can imagine how hard that was. And now, did you have a quota that you had to stick to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my first job was at least 4 hires per week, bare minimum, hopefully 5. My second recruiting job was 20 interviews per day. And that was warehouse. And those were good because it did teach me like tenacity and going out for what you want, and the sourcing aspects, and going and making sure that you're always talking to people and that you're always out there. And
I think that has really helped you with your outgoing personality and, just being able to deal with clients, and having, just like I said, positivity that you have on you. I'm pretty sure your clients love you, and they love your work. And I think a lot of it is tied to like what we learned as recruiters. I know for me, like you said, with the networking, being able to talk to people, being able to deal with issues, it really helped me. And let me tell you, so I did IT recruiting for classified positions for most of my recruiting career. But then my last 2 years, I did recruiting for telecom, but for consulting. And that's what really helped me kind of grow more as a person, because basically I was recruiting from the, I guess you would call it like engineer level all the way up to like the VP level. And so all of my managers were VPs of the company and senior VPs. So when we would have meetings every week. I believe it was on Mondays, and one thing that they always talk to me about, because they're consultants, and basically what they used to do is, when Verizon rolled out like 4G, they want the ones who led that initiative. They would hire the company I worked for, which was Encode, to kind of strategize that and show them how that's done to make it more efficient and cost effective as possible. And so when I would be in meetings, especially when I first started, they'd be like, "Hey, Thomas, you didn't hit your numbers for here, or we need more of this." And I would give excuses. And they would always say, and I remember it was a Keel. I can't remember his last name now, but he was for ATG, which was the Advanced Technology Group. And he always say, "Thomas, we're about solutions, not problems." He would say that every time I made an excuse. So now in life, I really don't make excuses. And anytime I want to make an excuse about something that's not going my way, I would think, we're not about problems, we're about solutions. And, that is what really I think I took from, recruiting. So it's great that you took a lot from recruiting as well. So now, when you first started videography, were you still doing recruiting?
Yes. So when I did my first branded Richly Productions wedding, I was still doing it for a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing it for a year. And surprisingly enough, the day I put on my calendar that I was going to quit in 6 weeks, I said, okay, in 6 weeks, I'm going to leave. I was talking to my boss, and me and my boss were having a conversation, and the conversation kind of went left.
Okay.
And she was talking to me she started talking to me very rude.
Yes.
And I said, okay. In that moment, I said, I'm making more money doing weddings than I am working here.
And you're happier, probably.
A lot happier.
Yeah.
A lot happier. So,
did you do a Jerry Maguire? Who's coming with me? Did you do one of those when you left?
No, I told, it was 2 people in the office with me, and I just said, hey, I think I'm getting fired. Well, technically, I quit. But for purposes, I said, getting fired. So I just said, hey, let you clock me out and all that. But the big backstory to that was I had a very tumultuous, that was in July of 16. So from November 15, January 16, I had a really bad time. So my father got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
9 days after we found that out, my sister died. So I was like, okay, cool. They were fine about that. They gave me time off. That January, my dad died. I said, okay, I'm here. I'm still trying to do wedding videos. I'm still working. The wedding video started to suffer during that time because I had a very unrealistic timeline that I was pushing out work. Because I was
we all did the same thing. Yeah. But let me ask you. Yeah. Was that talk with your manager, that negative talk, was it because you were taken off because you had so much bad in your life was going on?
No.
And that's why?
No, there was a number that I didn't hit, and
okay.
In the middle of talking, I was going to grief counseling, things like that, and she said, hey, you should be thankful to us because at least we let you get off time to go to counseling. I said, okay, I'm gone.
Yeah.
You clearly don't value what I bring to the table. I'm just going to.
Well, and that's something rude and very inconsiderate thing to say. Yeah. But I think a lot of us who, when we're doing these side, businesses, sometimes something affects us negatively. So that's what happened to me. That's why I left recruiting. Had something health-wise affect me negatively. You had family, and I'm so sorry to hear that. But a lot of those times, those things help make us stronger and give us the strength to leave. And I think the world is better for having Richly Productions, filming weddings. And do you just film weddings, or do you do other kind of productions as well?
So we do weddings, corporate, event, and now I'm trying to get into the government space.
Oh, nice. Yeah, man. Once I left recruiting, I never wanted to do government anything again. But that's good because the money's good and they're gonna pay on time. I think at least they used to.
Most times they do. But yeah, I love it. It's it's even different from what I thought I was going to do.
That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you. Yeah.
I appreciate that. When I first started out in video production, I thought I was going to do news, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to do news. I worked at my school's news station,
but it's not anything really creative in it, right? Is that one?
So that's the funny thing. It is. And you have to like look at it and see.
So you were able to find something creative in it, what you're saying. Okay. Oh, yeah. Tell us about it. Yeah.
Is when I started out my freshman year. I went to Clark Atlanta. So I started out my freshman year just putting in light bulbs. By the time I ended my time with CAU TV, I was the lead producer. So I produced the show from start to finish. Then I did my internship with CNN. Different type of news. So I liked seeing a process from beginning to end. And at CNN, you just push it off to the next person. So from there, I was like, okay, maybe that's not exactly what I want to do. And I went into doing event videos. So I was doing like the Cynthia Bailey, she was doing like a model search. So I was doing like those type of videos and other small like commercial stuff like that. Then went into the weddings. So the transferable skill from the wedding into journalism, or other way around, it's live production.
Yeah.
And so when I'm there, I always think on my feet and think about the creativity. Like, okay, well, how's this angle going to look? And how's this going to go? And how's this going to work? Because you still have to find, even when you were doing news packages, a creative side to seeing exactly, okay, how am I going to gauge? How am I going to interact? How am I going to keep someone there to watch for entire minutes? Especially now people watch things for 15 seconds and go off. So you have to keep them focused, keep their mind on what you're doing. So that's the biggest transferable skills, the live production. You know that you have to get it in one shot. You know you have to run, gun, shoot. And it also taught me how to be a one-man band.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I'm so humbled right now by you saying this, because for years I had been saying, oh, I hate it. Because, so when I was in college, I think it was either my last year of doing my bachelor's or my first year of graduate school. It might have been when I had graduated after I had done my bachelor's, but I worked for New York Mass Transit News as a cameraman. And for years I had been saying, oh my gosh, it was so boring. I hated it. There was no creativity in it. But now, maybe I didn't do it long enough. But now the way you're approaching it, man, I'm like, man, I'm excited about news now. You got me excited. And it's just so interesting how you brought all of those qualities to weddings. But then I think another thing you probably brought too, when you say you're doing live TV, is that you can't mess up. And then with a wedding, like, that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that you don't get a second chance
at all. So
you have to know your camera very well. You have to know the room very well, so that you're in the right place at the right time, especially like when that bouquet is tossing. You can't say, let's do that again. Funny story, I did do that one time, but once. But you really can't say, let's do it again.
No, you can't, because like I said, it's live. So and people are going through and consistently going. So you always have all these moving parts with the wedding. And you're like, okay, well, let me get this and let me grab this. And you don't have much time to think about it. And it's just the same with, like, if you're going to a break-in story, or if have somebody says, okay, well, we're on at 5, it's 4:15, and you have to get the package out. So like, it's the consistent editing, knowing how to do a quick cut, a quick edit, and bringing those skills into it. So I love it. And that's kind of where we're going now for 2019, 2020 as part of our branding.
Yeah.
Because pretty much everyone who works with me, like my best friend, she works with me. And her name is Michelle, and we started out in news together.
Okay.
So we have that journalistic style, because I love the fact of sitting back at a wedding and just sitting back. One of my biggest things that I love is when I had a couple about a year ago. They got their wedding video and they called me and said, hey, we love our video. It was great. And they said, just to let you know, we thought we were going to be mad at you. And I said, why? They're like, because we didn't think you were there. We thought you just left. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, oh.
Because they didn't notice you there. Because you know how to stay in the background and do your thing. That's awesome.
Yes, I love capturing those moments of just where my biggest thing to say is we're here. So we're here in this moment. Let's just capture it and just capture it as naturally as possible. Because sometimes you're going to look in the camera, it's going to be fun. That's great. But I like to capture just you being you. It's your day. It's the best thing.
That's awesome.
Day of love. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they left you a great review.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So with the government thing, like, what are you kind of looking to do with that? Would you be like filming for the military? Like, what kind of things are you looking to do?
Military, CDC conferences. A couple years ago, we filmed for Georgia Gear Up, and that's bringing like middle schoolers to college experiences and getting them ready for college, starting in ninth grade. I've done conferences and stuff like that. So pretty much for the government space, it would be like working with CDC, maybe trying to get into some animation or get into just general consulting videos. But you have a lot of people, even in the Atlanta area. One in particular, it's Cat Media. She does like a lot of government videos. And it's something I'm like, okay, well, that's another stream that we get into. But I've done everything. I've done hair replacement videos, the man weave videos, and that has garnered so many more views than in my one videos. I think it had over like 1.1 million views.
So do you put all of your... Well, first let me ask you, are you using like Vimeo or YouTube or both?
I used Vimeo a lot earlier on, but their website and their storage amounts and all that has changed so much. So now I use a lot of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. I know that you said that you stopped with your Facebook.
Yeah, so I stopped with Facebook, but then I on that podcast that you're referring to, I had a wedding planner who asked. So I just put it back. I don't do anything with it. I just do it just so people can tag me. And I also stopped using Vimeo. Let me tell you what happened with Vimeo with me. So, back in the days when everyone started, I think most videographers, when they first start, they would use copyrighted music because either they didn't know or they didn't care. I would say most people didn't know that you shouldn't use, copyrighted music on a wedding film. I had a couple call me yesterday and, ask me. I actually booked them this morning when I was driving here. Seeing they book, I was like, yes. Because a lot of times I will lose some clients when I tell them I don't use, mainstream music unless they can get the right. If you can get the rights to it, of course I'll use it. But most, average regular customers can't get the rights to the music or can't afford it. It'd be like 40 or 50,000 sometimes to, get a mainstream song that they like. So I was explaining to them last night that, all the ins and outs and how that, people can come after the videographer. But on Vimeo, I used to use copyrighted music, like, some of it like 5-6 years old. And so Vimeo started giving me recently, it's probably about 4 months ago, copyright strikes for stuff I did, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And, I stopped probably about like 4 years ago doing copyrighted music. But those old things. And so if I get one more, they're going to delete my whole Vimeo account. And so that's why I always tell clients, even if they put it on Facebook, and they upload it themselves, like maybe it might be a few months, it might be a year or so, but, eventually all those comments that you had that you like, all those, views that you had, Facebook could just take it down at any time. And so I do not use copyrighted music. So when did you and kind of how did you go about stop using copyrighted music, and how did that affect your relationship with your clients?
I actually stopped using copyrighted music after I talked to you about
it. Oh, okay.
And you referred me over to Music Bed, and I started using that more. I just broke it down the same way. Hey, I don't even bring it up about, okay, well, you can use this song and say, hey, I use this website. I'll send you over the information. If you see something that you like, I'll use that song.
Oh, man, how has that been working for you? I don't even give clients most of the time the option to look at it because sometimes they're just so overwhelmed with. And then the worst part, well, I used to. I've done it maybe about once or twice, but the worst thing was they will pick a song, I do the whole edit, and then they would be like, "Oh, we don't really like that song," and so that's why I pick them all now.
Now, I've only had that once.
Okay.
Um, with a client. I had a client come back. I did their wedding in May.
Mm-hmm.
Gave them their wedding about mid-June. They came back in October
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, we don't like our wedding video." I was like, "Okay." Now I've sat with them. They watched the video. I said, "This is the final copy. How do you like it?" "Oh, we love it. We love it. We love it. It's great." Come back. "Oh, well, we don't like it anymore. We want a full refund." Luckily enough, in my contracts, I have two big things. Line number 6, you have 48 hours, and I'll even extend it to a week. I don't, to let you know if there's something that you want changed. But before that, before you sign in big bold print, you have viewed my work, you've seen my work, you like my style. We're good to go on how your, because generally with my style, your wedding video is going to look roughly the same as.
Yeah, I think a lot of filmmakers have a certain footprint, to their work, a certain look to it, and so that's really good that you explain that. Yeah.
Yes, I have. I don't want someone to be like, it's like, especially now, I really drive the point home because we're evolving the style.
But were they not happy anymore because of the song, or?
No, they weren't happy because
they just after a while.
I'm not 100% sure they were still together when they said they didn't like the wedding.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That
I've had that happen before. Not where they say that they didn't like it, but when I went to go send the final copy, one was 2 months later. I went to go send the final copy of everything. 2 months later, I got done with everything and said, "Hey, where do I send the Blu-rays?" And she said, "Well, I'm currently going through a divorce, and I'll get back to you." And so in my head, I was like, "Okay, now what do I do now?" Of course, I said, "I'm so sorry." I said all that. But after I got off the phone, I was like, "What do I do now?" I'm like, "I don't want to be responsible holding on to this Blu-ray forever because she paid for it, And so what I eventually did, I still had the contact information for a family member, and I sent them the Blu-ray and said, "Hey, if she ever wants it, you have it, in the family, library now." And so I can, kind of just let it go. But that's really sad when that happens. I wish all marriages, could survive, but our job is to capture it. And yeah, maybe we should start adding, counseling to the front end of our. No, I'm kidding.
Because some of my couples, I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Because I try to follow after the wedding. I still follow a good.
Because you're so attached to them, you watch their day more than they do because you're watching clips and clips over, switching clips. I mean, we're spending probably like 40 to 50 hours on editing after the wedding day. So we get to know the guests. The speeches probably more than they do. The toast and things from the wedding, and you're like, "Oh, I remember at that guy at your wedding, did that funny toast." They're like, "Oh yeah, that did happen." So yeah, but. On a lighter note, what do you love about doing weddings?
It's a party. So every time I go to a wedding, I'm going to a party. Everybody's, by the time the reception happens, everybody's generally a little calm and everybody's happy. You don't have the anticipation and all the rush is kind of dissipated. So that's my happiest point. Then it would be seeing the couples and seeing their joy and seeing their happiness. Like I told one groom, he was like, "I'm not sure if I'm going to cry during the wedding." I said, "You're going to cry. It is what it is." Because at that point, when you have your couple when they're walking down the aisle, you're seeing them for the first time. You know that you're about to get married. They're wearing couture. They've spent months of planning. You've gone through this journey from the first day you met to now you're saying, "I want to commit my life to this person." So all that is culminating in that moment. So you're here and I'm able to experience that with them. I'm able to see them walk down the aisle and I know that the person behind them is smiling. I'm smiling, seeing them. it's just that happy moment, and they're there in that space, and it's just them showing the world what they mean to each other.
When we first met, and after we had breakfast together, and we kind of talked about, our plans to kind of take our work to the next level. I kind of want to move from weddings eventually, get into more documentary work. You had mentioned back then too that you wanted to get into more government work as well, and kind of take your weddings to another level. We also talked about pricing as well, and upping pricing. I told you, hey, rich man, you need to raise those prices. What has that been like? Have you has your clientele kind of changed since you have done that, and has it been a positive effect?
So my clientele has changed, and it's been kind of crazy, and the fact of the work has slowed. I will admit the work has slowed, but the changes that I've made, I wouldn't go back on them at this point.
Because you can improve the quality too when you up the cost, because you can buy better equipment, you can do other things. Rich, so what can people kind of look out for you in the future to doing? Like, what are you excited about? I know you're doing the government work and you're taking your weddings to a new level. What can people, if they hire you, what can they be excited about that you're doing new?
On the Rich Lee side, we're actually now starting to get into our own custom content. We're getting into like podcasting,
nice,
more interviews. I'm trying to now work on a website with Michelle, who I mentioned earlier. It's just a hopeful website for brides and what they're going through, and when they're hiring people, and what things to look for and things like that. So that's one of my biggest goals for 2020. But I'm actually going to film a first podcast tonight. My roommate is a therapist, and she's training now to actually be a sex therapist. And so she wants to do a series of podcasts, and she's really out there. She does a lot of speaking work and a lot of speaking engagements. So that's the biggest thing.
Me. Yeah, you gotta send it to me. I can't wait to listen to it. Let me tell you, I'm addicted to podcasts. I listen to that every time I'm driving. I'm listening to a podcast. When I'm about to go to sleep, I'm listening to a podcast. When I'm editing, most of the time, I'm either watching a YouTube tutorial on how to get better or listening to a podcast on how to get better. So, as a filmmaker. So, that's really good, man. So, how can people find you?
You can find me everywhere across the board, Rich Lee Productions, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo. It's just Rich Lee Productions straight out. You can email us, rich@richleeproductions.com. And our number is 404-997-0716.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I watch all the podcasts, so I'm excited.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Thank you for being on, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening in today, consider subscribing to the podcast. See you next time.